In the week leading up to Anzac Day, TV1 showed the Peter Berger film, Field Punishment #1. It was about the conscientious objectors in World War I and the incredibly harsh punishments they all suffered. It was a really hard film to watch. I'm sure some of you probably saw it. There is, though, in the movie a very beautiful scene where 3 of the men are in prison in France. They sit down for a lunch break from their day of forced hard labour, and they are given really thick white bread to eat, which of course is not their usual fare. The guards kind of throw it at them and say, "Merry Christmas." It's their Christmas present, this lovely white bread. They don't even realise it's Christmas, one of them says to the guards, "So it's Christmas Day then." And then as they sit in the cold with the snow just beginning to fall, one of them leans back and smiles and says, "Oh, that's good. Can you feel the sun on your face?" One of the others looks puzzled for a second and then responds, "Ah, smell that pahutakawa. It's great this time of year, isn't it?" And the first one replies, "I think it's tea tree. Someone is smoking a trout for Christmas dinner." "Ah, that's what it is, all right. No doubt about it, though, I'm going to get sunburnt if I'm not careful." The third man is still looking slightly confused, and so they ask him, "What did you get in your stocking this morning, Will?" And then he gets it, and he says, "Listen." And they pause and listen. "Ah, it's just the kids splashing down at the shallows. Hope someone told them about the crabs." And then the scene fades, and we go back to the ongoing ordeal of Archibald Baxter. Our 2 companions walking the road to Emmaus this morning are not suffering such dire circumstances, but they are in despair. They are lost. They have no idea what to do. The one who had given them hope for the future of their people, their prophet, who had seemed to be mighty in word and deed, has turned out to be not so mighty after all. What are they to do? And then this mysterious stranger joins them on the road, and they do not recognize him. They do not know him. They have known Jesus well, it seems, previously. They have listened to his teaching, but they do not recognize him now. This post-resurrection Jesus is different. He is changed. He is elusive. And this stranger listens to their tale and then does some teaching of his own, talking about Moses and the prophets, explaining perhaps that God was never going to give them the triumphant victory over the Romans that they wanted. Moses might well have had victory over the Egyptians, but that was followed by 40 years in the wilderness, where the people were fed with bread, manna from heaven they called it. And then he explains how Elijah was chased out of town for fear of his life, and how a widow gave him her last bread. And how Isaiah spoke of a servant who would suffer with the people and not bring the victory they were imagining. How Isaiah had said, along with some of the other prophets, "Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house?" These things and many others Jesus taught Cleopas and his companion as they walked along, and still they did not know him. But they ask him to stay with them because the day is ending. And the word that Luke uses here for stay is often translated in other places abide. Abide with us because it is almost evening. John's Gospel has Jesus say, "Abide in me as I abide in you. Abide in my love." The word is more than come stay with us. It means be with us. Let us know you. abide with us a while." And the stranger stays, and they gather at the table for a meal, and they ask him to bless the bread, as was customary. And Jesus took the bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them. And in that moment, they recognize him, they see him, and they know him. And he vanishes, elusive again. Jesus took the bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to them, just as he had done at the Last Supper, just as he had done in the sharing of the loaves and the fish with the crowds of thousands. Those actions of taking, blessing, breaking, and giving are actions that Cleopas and his companion recognized. They are actions that we recognize as the actions of our Eucharist. The risen Jesus is going to be found now in the gathering of the community at the table or on the beach, sharing bread and fish. But he does not stay. One writer says God's presence is always elusive, floating, dancing at the edge of our awareness and perception. Thomas Boomershine says the reality of the resurrected Jesus' presence is located in the memory of the listeners and in their recognition of the connection between Jesus' liturgical gestures and the liturgical actions of the Eucharist. In these visible images, the invisible one is seen. In these visible images and actions, the invisible one is seen. Jesus does not stay physically with them, except that he is present when the people gather, and they know him in a different way, in each other and in the bread and the wine that they share. The prisoners in the field punishment movie all have moments when they feel hope and support in their times of deep despair and suffering. The scene I described was triggered by the sharing of bread together. They took the bread grudgingly offered to them, and it became a sacrament of memory and sharing of love and life, as real or even more real for a moment than the harsh conditions around them. And then it was gone, elusive, but the hope remained in their hearts, and they carried on one more day. On Thursday, I was privileged to join you, the community who gathers here at this table, on your journey, on your roads to Emmaus. We're going to walk this road together for a season, and it remains to be seen how elusive God is going to be. I expect, though, that God will show up when we gather at the table, when we take, bless, break, and give the bread to each other. I expect that God will show up when we feed the hungry and speak up for the poor and the excluded. I expect that God will show up when we welcome people with radical hospitality to be baptized or married or buried. And I expect that God will show up in your lives of work and service and ministry in the world. And I expect that God will show up at your tables, especially when you invite a stranger to abide there. For God is in all those places already ahead of us. Many others will join us on this road, and they will all be welcome. We will invite them to abide a while with us. And my prayer will be that when we gather, our hearts will burn within us as we open the scriptures together, as we break bread together, as we pray and sing together. Our hearts will burn with desire for our elusive God. Our hearts will burn with joy for the love that we know. And our hearts will burn with anger for the sorrows and injustices of our world. Our hearts will burn with frustration at the slowness of our church to get over itself on the issue of gay marriage. Our hearts will burn within us. And we will share our joys and our sorrows, our frustrations and our celebrations. In the book of Acts, we hear the classic description of church community life. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. It's not very complicated, really. And I am blessed to be beginning my walk to Emmaus with you all as companions today. And the risen Jesus, elusive, invisible, visible, is walking right beside.